everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 474. Today we're going to take a look at Signorie, and this is a game from What's Your Game. This is a medium Euro, plays 2 to 4 players. It has a cool, interesting dice choosing mechanic. You roll a bunch of dice, and then you choose them and take actions based on their value and their color. The theme of the game is you are controlling a family during sort of Renaissance or medieval Italy, and you are really in control of your offspring, basically forcing them to go either do work and become join the clergy or join the military and go on different diplomatic missions if they're boys. If they're girls, you just marry them off to whoever. You can also kind of get kind of an engine going with these and kind of grow your family and spend them in different ways. So it's kind of interesting thematically that way. But let's jump into the mechanics, and then we will talk about what I think of it. So here's just about everything that you get in Signorie. You got the main board here. You got a little map down here of Italy. The players have their own player boards in their color. They're pretty much the same. You'll notice you get these little tiles here. These will act as bonuses for points at the end of the game. This configuration is a little bit different. So these are alliance tiles. So you have alliance with these different houses. And this is, political and clerical and war and stuff. And so each of these have different sets of bonuses based on the board that you get. And then you've got this sort of matrix of actions that you can do. The way that you do actions, you'll be taking these dice every round. They'll be rolled every round, and they'll be choosing them and activating different actions. So for example, if I took this turquoise 4 here, and then I would put that on my board like so, and I'd be able to activate that. And I get a choice of what to do. And what you're trying to do, again, is get alliances out here on this board. You're going to be having men and women sort of workers. So if we take a look here at the yellow player, you have some extras up here in the supply, and then you'll start with some as well. So you got the women there in the little dresses and the men there. And so you're going to be putting them out on the board or training them on these different tracks to go out and go on these kind of diplomatic missions and be married away and so on. So let's take a look at how a round is going to go. You're playing a fixed number of rounds. You can see that down here. You get possible bonuses at the end of each round, and then whoever has the most points in the game is obviously the winner. So let's take a look at the different colors. So if we take a look here, you can see yellow, red, purple, gray, and then turquoise. So when you take a die, you can only take 4 dice on your turn. So you have 4 actions, or you can even pass early if you want. You take, for example, maybe the yellow die, and you put that here. Now you can no longer take any more yellow die. You've got to take the other colors. And then you get to do one of 3 things. So I can either do the special action, which is what this little envelope means associated with the yellow. That's going to change from round to round. Or I can do this helper action, or I can do this kind of Signorie action. This is kind of the main action associated with yellow. So I can take this die, and then I can take $3. Or I can do the yellow action, which is on the main board, which I'll show you. Or you can see each of these has a different helper action. So if I took this purple die here, I can do sort of the purple action on the board. I can roll some dice to reproduce, which I'll show you, or I can do the helper action. Now you can see there's a color under each of the helper actions. So if I took this yellow one, I can go and pay money to put a disc underneath one of these turquoise ones, because you can see this says turquoise under it. And so the money here, the cost, I could pay $3, for example, here, and do that. So anytime that I take a turquoise action here, I can do one of these 3 things, and then anything that the helper has been marked, in this case collect 3 victory points, I'll do that every time I take this action. So that's what you do. You get a choice. You get to do this action, do the helper action, or do kind of the special action associated with that color. Now, let's look at just the different actions. So you can collect $3. That's pretty straightforward. You can put a lady out onto the board and basically marry her off. And I'll explain how that works now. So you can pay a certain amount, basically the dowry, and then put her out onto the board. And again, you start with a handful of these, and you'll collect more over the course of the game. You're going to find one of these areas to put her out, and you're always going to put it in the lowest number possible. So if red and yellow had gone here, the 1s are filled up, and so the purple will come along, and you have to put it in the 2. Now what you do is you have to pay the amount of money of the spot that you put it. So if purple came out and they put it here, they'd have to spend $2. However, you get 2 victory points for each dollar you spend. So in this case, purple would get 4 victory points. You can also overspend up to a maximum of 4. So purple, if they wanted, could come here and spend 4, so they would get 8 points. And then you can possibly take this alliance tile. Now you'll see on all of these spaces, there are alliance tiles associated with the marriage, in case of sending a female out, or with a diplomatic action in case of sending a male out, which I haven't talked about yet. So if you need the particular tile associated, in this case this icon here, or if you sent them down here, you would look at this one next to the female icon there, then you would be able to take that. Now you possibly will score those points at the end of the game. So if we take a look here, as I showed you at the beginning, they have these different tracks here on the side of the board. So that tile that you take, you'll take and put that here next to the female track, the marriage track. And so you can see I need one of these. Well, and this track is the same for everybody. So everybody needs one of each alliance tile. And you'll get this many points at the end of the game if you have 3 or more total tiles. Now, because I've already met this requirement, if I was to maybe come and grab another tile later, I couldn't do that and put that here. If I was a marriage tile that had an icon like the one I just had, then I can't take that one. I could still do the marriage action, I just can't take that bonus tile. And so again, you can once you get 3 of these, then you can score all the points for that. Now sometimes you'll get a special action. One example is right here. If you look at this helper action, you can trigger and you can see you get the face down side of it. So there'll be a pile of these off the side of the board, and you'll have that there. So you can just take one, and these are always 1 point on the other side, but what they do is they help you kind of meet that threshold of 3 tiles there. Now I did mention that you get some of these female and male workers to start, but you need to get more of them, and that's what this action is here. And so you're going to roll 1 die for each person in your family that's married. So this is kind of you at the top. You can see at the top of each of the player boards. But through the course of the game, you're going to get these little sort of neutral colored females here, and then line them up. So at any point that you take this action here to reproduce, then you're going to count up, always at least 1, the number of marriages there, and roll the dice. And then you can see up here on the board that any die of 1, 2, or 3, you get a female, and then 4, 5, or 6, you get a male. So in this case, I would get 2 males and a female. So I grab 2 males here, and then a female, and then I would add them to my supply, and then they would become available. And again, you get to do any of the actions. So if I had somehow marked these 2 actions here, whenever I took this reproduction action here, I would get 3 points on the book track, which I'll show in a minute, and then I get one of those face down ones like I just showed you. Now, you also have the ability to send a male out and do a diplomatic mission, but you can't do that until you've trained them. So before we send them out, we're going to go to try to train them. And that's where these sort of training actions come in. So if you take this action here, you can move up 4 spaces on any of the 4 tracks. And here are the 4 tracks. So you have the book track, which is this track up here. You can see the book there at the top. And this is reset every round based on the turn order. And so what will happen is, let's say we moved up like so. In this case, then red will be first. So red will go first next turn, and then yellow, and then purple. And this will reset every round. Then you'll restack these up. So if you get any points to move up the book track, like I showed you that spot, you can move up 3. You go 1, 2, 3, and maybe you get more. You get more towards the end of the game, and you'll start to get points based how far you moved up the track. Now these other 3 tracks here, you can see the top, the political, the clerical, and the war track. For each point that you get, so for example, you have this action here, you can get 4 points in any of the tracks. You can distribute them, put them all in the political track here, or do 1 in each, or whatever you want to do. Then you can put 1 guy out for 1 point, and then move them up for another point. So maybe I get 4 points, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and they move up the track a little bit. Then what you're trying to do is get them further and further up the track to unlock certain things. So once you hit here, you get 2 free dollars, which you might scoff at that because they go, oh, I get 2 free bucks, but money's going to be kind of tight. So you might do an action to do that. Just go like, you know what, I can't get money out of anywhere, but if I do this action, I can move these guys up here for later. It's going to get me some money. and that's going to come in handy. If you move up to here, you get actually a bump up on the book track itself. And then the next thing you're trying to look at here is actually these numbers on these spaces. So there's two numbers to look at. You've got these icons here, 2, 3, 4. That's sort of the level of expertise they are, these different tracks. So you can see if I move him up here, he's kind of level 3 on the politics and he's level 2 on the clerical. And then you've got this number here in white, and that's the number of victory points when you take the action to actually put them out onto the board, similar to how you married off the female characters. So if we take the action here to put the guy out here, so if we take a look at this, the gray action, that's where you actually send him on a diplomatic mission. So they have to come off of this track and then you send him out. So this level here, in this case, this guy's level 3, he has to be at least equal to or greater than the number that's currently available, the lowest possible number. So he's okay here because this is a 2. We can send him out and bam, we'll do that action. Now, you're going to get, in this case, 5 points, the amount of points. You just get that point straight up. And again, you're going to look at now, not the left-hand side with the female stuff, you're going to look at the right-hand side and grab that tile if you need it. So you're going to take a look at which track you sent them from. So if you sent them from the political track, which we did in this case, you're going to say, okay, I need one of those 4 tiles. Is that one? Nope. That's not it. So maybe you wanted to send the guy from the war track, because you can see these 2, I need 2 of those to match. And so you can grab that tile if you match. Again, you don't have to match, but you can, and you get the bonus. At the end of the game, you might actually be way up this track and not really care about the tile that you get, because you're going to get a lot more victory points for being so expertly trained. Now, I also mentioned these special actions here. You can see these are variable actions at the each round. These are actually going to get mixed up. So let's take a look at those. So you can see out here we have these different envelopes over here, and we have these different tiles, and these are mixed up every single round. And so these are going to be little bonuses that you can do instead of the actions on the board there. And how this works, you can see you have all females here in the top row. That means you can spend the females, and then here's the males down here. So for example, let's take a look at this particular tile. Let's say we did the yellow actions, we didn't do the money or the helper action. And here we can spend up to 3, in this case males, because that's where this tile landed. And you can move 2 spaces up the clerical track for each male that you spend. So you just discard them back into your stock there. And then you can, so I did 2 there, so I can move up 4 spaces. And this one I could get money, so I can spend up to 3 females, get $2 for each of those. I can spend, 2 males and move up the book track. I can get one of those face down tiles. What else? The real interesting one here is this one here, and I haven't talked about this yet. And this will set your threshold. You see those dice there? And let's talk about the threshold. So if at the end of the round, after you've taken all 4 dice, let's take some dice here. There's a 3, there is a 4, there's a 4, and that gives me a total of 11, and we'll take this one here, and that'll give me a total of 12. So there's an interesting piece to taking these dice. The first thing to note is most of the time, or 50% of the time, is going to be free. So if I took this 3 here and I put it on a 1, I'm good. If I took this 4 and I put it on a 3, I'm good. So as long as the die is equal to or less than a number that you're placing it on, you can see yellow is kind of easier to do this. If it's equal to or less, you don't have to pay anything. But if the die is lower than the number, so the grays and the turquoise are kind of harder, you have to pay the difference. So in this case, I'd have to pay $3 to take this one because it's 3 under, and I have to pay $1 to take that one. So you can kind of see where the money starts to disappear. But if the total number of dice that you take, in this case we got 7, 8, 12, if that total is 13 or less, then you get to do a cool bonus at the end of the round. However, remember I was showing you this action up here. If you spend, let's see, in this case it would be, you would take a turquoise action and spend up to 3 females, then you can put them out here as a kind of a reminder, and that means you kind of bump up your threshold just for that round. You're spending them for that round. So instead of 13, your dice have to be 16 or less. Or you could even do 2. You could spend 2 of these instead of to be 19 or less. And that definitely does come into play, because these bonuses can be pretty important in the game. So if you are 13 or less, or more, if you did the special action, you get to do a bonus. Now, everybody that meets the criteria gets to do a marriage. This is how you get the new kind of neutral ladies to come over and marry your family. So you get, in the first round, you get just the marriage. In the second round, you get a marriage and a little bit of a dowry and so on. Then you have the option to choose either to get $3 or take this special action. And there's more of these. These are kind of randomly seated. And these can be pretty important, or it can just be important to get the money. Here you get 2 guys out of the supply. This is one of the face down tiles that I showed you. This one you get to put a free helper, 5 training points, and so on. And then starting in round 6 and 7, you're going to go over here. You're no longer getting married or anything. You can no longer have the option of getting the $3, but this is, you're going to score some bonus points. So this is going to be, you're going to get 4 points for each different city that you have females in, and then you also get 2 points for each of the helpers that you've put on your board there. And then at one time you can spend $5 and get 5 points. So that's the game mechanically. You're going to be taking actions here, starting to put helper discs out. So the next time you do the action, you get a lot of more cool stuff. You may even just be going there, not even for the main action, but just to activate the helpers. These envelope things are going to be kind of not really important, you know, at the beginning of the game, but then they get more and more important as the game goes on to let you kind of break the rules, sort of. But it's really about collecting these alliance tiles, scoring the points for doing them, and then getting the points at the end of the game. Remember, you need at least 3 in a row to even score that row, because if you just collect 2, that's nothing, so they're not going to be worth any points at all. You will get some points here for anybody that's left on this track. You get half the points rounded down how far they were up on the track. And you don't want to definitely ignore this book track either, because you can really set up a nice combo, so you're kind of constantly moving up the book track and get a lot of points that way. Okay, so that is Signorie. What do I think of it? I really enjoyed this game. It's a little bit of a slow burn when you first play the game. I've played the game 3 times now, and every time I've played it, it's like, do I like this game? But then you kind of kick into the mid-game or end-game, and it gets a little bit more interesting. Because sometimes you're just taking actions like, I'm going to do this action, spend a little money, and put a helper out. That's it. And then you go, and then you go, and you go. And then so you kind of building up slowly the cool stuff that you can do in your turn. So it kind of feels sort of anticlimactic, I guess, to just take an action and then spend some money and then put a disc on a spot, so on a later turn you're going to get to do a cool action. It's just kind of a strange sort of slow build-up. But once you kind of get rolling with it, it gets pretty crunchy, and it gets pretty, I wouldn't say it's nasty, but you get to the point where you actually are contesting the different alliance tiles. So you put out the women and the men to go out there and kind of snag those tiles to get bonuses at the end of the game. At the beginning of the game, it's kind of a free-for-all. Everything's, that's out there, I need that, you need that. Oh, we're all hunky-dory. You know, you're getting bonus tiles, I'm getting bonus tiles. But then as you kind of fill up and meet the requirements that you have, again, you can't just take any old tile at that point. You've got to take tiles that you actually need. And so then people are really kind of going after those different things. And then once your engine kicks in, and you can really abuse, like I said, the book track and some of the other special abilities and things, and then you start to amass kind of an excess of men and women that you don't need to send to school or marry off. You can just kind of spend them and send them where, I don't know where they're going, but you spend them, and then you take the actions that are on the board there. Interesting thing happened. I actually played it wrong 2-player, and then was made aware of it afterwards. And I think the way I played it is probably better. I don't know. So when you play the game with less than 4, you don't use all the cities. If you play it with 3, you remove 1. If you play it with 2, you only have 3 cities available total. And that's completely didn't know that and forgot that. And we played with all 5 cities available with 2 players, and it worked actually pretty fine. And the one thing that was interesting about it was in some of the other games I played, got to the point at the end of the game where those alliance tiles get kind of stagnant, because there's like 1 or 2 maybe that people need, but then you're like, I don't really need, you know, this alliance tile. So it gets kind of stagnant, which I don't think is necessarily a problem. There was some discussion about that, because you can still get a good chunk of points if you drive your guys up those different tracks and you score a bunch of points that way. I mean, you can get a lot of points that way. And you can get a lot of points up the book track. So the tiles aren't really the only way to score points, but if it becomes stagnant, it becomes a little bit, I can see it being frustrating for people. But I don't think it's the end of the world. But having played it wrong, where all 5 cities were available, it was still interesting, and you know, there was some consideration that you had to have in terms of where you went, but it didn't get stagnant. So I feel like maybe it's better to play, and I guess it just kind of comes out with the tiles, but I did see that some people actually had a problem with the 2-player game because of only being 3 cities available and kind of getting like a little bit of a gridlock. But I would just play with, you know, maybe you add 4 cities or something and play around with that. That kind of brings me to a point of there's a nice little sheet here of variants. So I don't know that they couldn't necessarily figure out how they wanted to play the game, but I think the game is such that you can kind of customize it in house rule and just kind of play it in a sense that it's not like you're not trying to fix the game, you're just trying to play with these different kind of conditions. And I think that's actually a feather in its cap, because you can play so that it's the actions that you use on the board, for example. You can, once you use them, you flip the tile over and then that's gone. So then certain actions like that threshold action that I showed you, that can become, you know, a little bit more contested, because I've seen, you know, rounds where, you know, more than one person use that, and it's like you use it and then lock it down. That's going to definitely change up the order that you choose things. Yeah, so I think the next question for me that I can hear it out there is, do you like this better than Nippon and Madeira? Because I always get asked that after I did my Nippon review. Do you like Nippon better than Madeira? That I don't know. I haven't played Nippon enough. I think I still like Madeira better, but I gotta play it. This one I would say is probably third on the list. I still like it. I mean, I still think it's a good game, but I think it's definitely third. It does remind me more of Nippon than Madeira. Those two, Nippon and this game, are really kind of in a sort of a same, I don't know if they were playtesting each other's games, or they kind of come out back to back here. But the whole choosing of dice in this game and kind of the variable cost of that based on the number and based on not necessarily a monetary cost, but a real, you know, impactful cost of, am I staying under the number to get the cool bonus? That really reminds me of Nippon. It's where you're grabbing the different workers of the colors in that game, which may or may not cost you a certain amount at the end of the game, and depending on how many you grab, you're going to be able to kind of execute and grab a bonus tile and all that stuff in that game. So that kind of worker dice choosing thing is really, really interesting, I think, in both games. This one's a little bit lighter, I think, than Nippon. Nippon is a little bit more open-ended. I think in that one, it's a little bit more player dynamics going on there, and, you know, because there's like an area control thing, where this is a little bit more just a kind of a race aspect to it, and kind of just, it's a little bit more engine building kind of thing, where you're kind of setting up, going here and here, you know, trying to efficiently build up your engine and score some points early in the game, but setting yourself up to score a lot of points at the end of the game. So I enjoy this game. I definitely recommend it. If you like Nippon and you want some more of this kind of thing, I would say get this and take a look at it. And I wouldn't get too hung up on, like, you know, hearing people talk about how 2-player is not that good. I mean, I played it wrong, but it was fun. So what do you want me to do? It was fun, you know. Play it that way. You know, play around with it. Add 4 cities. Have 5. Go back to 3. I think it's just a part of the game. I don't know. I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, that was frustrating, so it was bad. I don't know. Maybe it's something with me. I'm like, that's frustrating. That irritates me. That's cool. Yeah, I know. But, you know, there's a degree, right? Because it's like, it's going to be frustrating that you can't, like, do anything. That sucks. So I can see the frustration. I understand that. But I think it's not a negative. To me, I don't think it's a big deal. I would play it. Even though I had fun with 5 and the stuff that I've read, I would still play it with having 3 cities, because I'm just like, well, you got to focus on the book track and the other tracks to get your points out of the game that way, or even getting the combos here, because you can score a lot of points on your board. So I acknowledge that those issues exist, sort of, but I don't think they're really an issue. So there you go. Enjoy it. Thanks.